everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be building a winery, and we are building in Ondarion on the Giardino del Grandioso lot. It's a 64 by 64 lot, and this is just like the perfect lot for a winery because there's like so many rolling hills and vineyards at the back of it. And I'm going to be building a winery that's inspired by a lot of wineries that we would see here in the Western Cape province of South Africa. If you didn't know, I'm from South Africa, and I've been doing some more South African inspired builds. So what I'm currently doing is just setting out the kind of like the layout and the landscaping. This took me so long. I remember I started it on a Saturday like afternoon around 4, and I finished the next day at like really late because of what I decided to do here. So I took a lot of the clips and I condensed it to 6 minutes just because it would have been so long if I showed you every single thing, every single mistake, what I was contemplating and whatever. So I'm just going to show you like how, like a little bit of the process of doing this landscaping, this manicured look that I've gone for the front of the build. And if you have questions about anything, you can ask me in the comments and I'll try my best to explain it to you. And if you need another video of how I did anything that I didn't fully expand upon in this video, then I will try my best to make that video when I have the time to do so. But before I get too far into this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this video and you would like to see more of my content. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, so if you hear that I'm a little nasally or congested, it's because I have been sick. I've been dealing with flu for I think since last week Friday. I'm recording this on Wednesday the 24th of June, and yeah, I've just been sick. This was supposed to go out last week, but I had so much footage because this build, what was supposed to just be like a cute wine store maybe where you purchase wine, then turned into, oh, I need a place for them to not only purchase it but taste it, so I included a bar. Then it was like, oh, but you need to grow things to make the wine, so I included a greenhouse and a whole gardening area. And then I was like, oh, it goes well with wine, cheese, so I need a space for a cow. And then I was like, wouldn't it be nice if you could have guests come and they could like press wine themselves. You could like set it as an activity with the business and hobbies thing. So I made a whole barn where you can have guests press wine, and then also I was like, you need a place to store the wine. So then I made a cellar, and then also I was like, okay, for businesses and hobbies, for this build to function properly with that pack, I need a place for the owner of this place to stay. And so I made one section of the build kind of like an apartment, not an apartment but a separate living area for whoever owns this lot. So the way that it works with businesses and hobbies, for your sim to be able to visit a business owned by someone else, the owner of that business needs to be staying on the lot. It doesn't really work if, for example, you have someone else own the lot and they stay somewhere else. If you then try and visit it with another sim, you will not get the option whether you want to visit that lot as the residents of the sim or the business of the sim. And so that's why usually when I have my businesses and hobbies build, I will include a section for them to live. And also there was just so many other things that I had already included in the build. I wouldn't have known what to put in that other section. I really did underestimate how much space I gave myself. I wanted to build on this lot because, like I said, it is the perfect lot. There's so many, the vineyards at the back, I didn't really want to include that on the lot because they are just decoration, so it would have been a wasted space. But then I was like, oh, you know what, this is actually a huge lot. So I had so much footage, and then coupled with me getting sick, I just could not get this build out when I really wanted it to. I might need to take actually breaks while I'm recording this voiceover, just because my voice and my senses are not at its best at the moment. So if there's any awkward audio changes or whatever, it's probably due to that. But I did not want to put off this build any more than I already have. And so I actually want to explain the transition that you just saw happen. This whole section took so long. Like I said, it just really took so long. If I included all of the footage, I think this video would have been so much longer, and there's so much more to this build that I think is so, like, I want to show more than the manicured lawn. I will show a section in the back where I do the exact same things for how I got this lawn that you can then apply if you want to do it on your own. You will need the tool mod for it, but don't worry, if you download any of my builds from the gallery, you don't need the tool mod for, you know, for it to show up that way in your builds. You must always just ensure that if you download my builds from the lot, make sure that move objects is on, otherwise things may not be in a certain place. So here's a section where I'm going to show you quickly how I achieved the look on the other side. It's basically the same. The pattern may be a bit different, but it's the exact same principle. So I set out the hedges. This hedge is from an event. I think it was the very first event that we got. It was a festive one, and it's basically like hedges with little lights in them. I love using them. They don't really help a lot with lighting up the place. They just look really pretty at night, so that's why I use them. I prefer to use them over normal hedges. If I'm not mistaken, if you download this build and you didn't, for example, get this event, I think it's just going to be a normal hedge that's in your game. Yeah, so what I did is place the edges in the pattern that I wanted, then use the tool mod to kind of drop it into the ground, and then you know, you just have to fiddle around with them. Some of the hedges will not sit at the same height, which I didn't really have much of a problem with. I mean, in real life they will probably grow not really all at the same pace or whatever, so maybe they are, you know, at different stages of growing or whatever, is kind of the excuse I came up with it for those that I could not get to be at the exact level as the others. But yeah, that's how you make that entire thing in the front. And as you can see, I was working with terrain here, and if you've watched any of my other videos where I've worked with terrain before, you would know that I don't really like the color of the terrain when it's raised up, so I do my best to cover it all up, which you can see I covered it with hedges everywhere. But yes, that is the main, you know, kind of way that I created the very manicured lawn situation. That's all that I included for that section. I hope that it kind of showed you what I did and how it, you know, how it got to that point in the front especially. But I couldn't, you know, I couldn't include all of those clips. It was just going to be way too long. And then, oh yes, this is the only piece of CC that you'll need. So when I was doing this build, I will show photos of my inspiration for this build. The roofing is very similar to this. I think it's called a paraslide in game, or a parapet, something like that. However, with businesses and hobbies, which is just wild to me, it does not come in a white swatch. And I feel like everything should, at least if it makes sense for the object, everything should come in a basic white swatch. I think this is why it took me so long to build this thing, because there was actually like a gap in time between me building, you know, the base with the front section, the front manicured lawn, and the back part, and then actually putting this structure on the base, because I really wanted the building to be white. A lot of the times when you see these around, you know, where I live, and then in other places in the Western Cape, they are always this stark white color and they stand out because of it. And it didn't come in white. So what did I do? I learned how to recolor objects just so that I could have it in white. So if you want it in white, you will have to download this paraslide. I will put it on my Patreon, and then I'll include the link in the description. But yeah, I sat there and I learned, like, I think for a whole afternoon how to recolor. It's by no means perfect, I would say. It's obviously my first recolor, but I think it looks fine from far. If you go up close, I think it looks fine as well. But yeah, I just needed my vision of this being white to come to fruition, and so that's the lengths I was gonna go to for that. And now that I know that I can go to that lengths, I'm kind of scared, because now I will probably recolor anytime I'm not happy with something being a certain color. However, if you do want this to be custom content free, then I will include a version on my gallery as well. My gallery name is SimWithMishka, but I always include a hashtag SimWithMishka, so that you can kind of search it through the hashtag quick. And then I'll include the name that I also used on the gallery in the description. But if you want a non-CC free version, it will obviously not be this white color. It will either be the off-white pink color that comes with businesses and hobbies, or the yellow color. I will maybe perhaps include a photo of, you know, whatever version I decided to go with for the normal no custom content gallery version. But other than this paraslide, parapet, whatever, it is CC free. Yeah, CC free. And like I said, you don't need the tool mod to download this build if you don't use, you know, mods and whatever. And then you might think, why did I place the shutters on the bottom half of this window? When I was looking through my photos and stuff, you know, that I was using to build this thing, I was like, why are the shutters on the half part of the window? And I was like, okay, let me Google if this is right. So I Googled it, and it's actually called cafe styled shutters, something like that. And the whole idea is that you would use the shutters on the bottom for privacy, but you'll still have the section open at the top so that natural light can come in. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I actually am not crazy. This is meant to be this way. So that's why it is like that. And then I used these doors from the Tea Time Solarium kit. I actually do like that kit a lot. The only thing that I don't like from the kit is really the cake stands, because they're just so horribly textured, or they just look horrible, you know. But I did use them though, because inside I wanted a section for where some can kind of like grab some snacks and whatever. And so I did use one of those cake stands in there, which I'll, you know, speak about when we go in there again. And something that I actually forget to mention about the color scheme, this brown, I sat on it whether I wanted brown and white or green and white for so long. So I actually had to call my husband in and be like, please help me out here. I don't know which one looks better. Let me know, brown or green. And he was like, I think the brown looks better. And I was like, okay, fine, I agree. Let me keep the brown. So I went with this brown and white, and I just love how it, like, the contrast in the colors, and then with the green, you know, from the greenery on those pergolas. I don't think this is actually called a pergola, the, you know, the thing that I put in front, but I just like the green on them as well, and blending in with those colors. If I do post the other version, I will maybe decide to change the shutters and those other brown accent colors, because maybe I feel like it doesn't fit well enough with the, you know, the new color that I choose or whatever. But I don't think it would be too different. Well, I do think it will not, you know, be this beautiful white building, but I think that it will still look or have the look and feel that I was going for. And then I wanted a section off the bar to, you know, have outdoor seating and so on. And I was looking through the different structures that we have for outdoor areas. I didn't like any of those, so I did decide to go with drawing one, and I'm using a fence, so this really low-lying fence, and then just drawing this diagonal pattern on it. And I was gonna go with a white, but I do decide to just change it to, you know, brown again, just to, you know, match with the other accent colors. And also in a lot of my inspiration as well, a lot of these things that were around, like pergolas and the shutters and all of these things, they are in the brown color, so I decided to do it there, which you can see. And then I also just put down some spandrels to complete it, just to make it look more structured, because it wasn't looking like it was resting on anything that would be able to hold it up. So I decided to do that. And then this column, I used that new Bridgerton kit for this column. I purchased that because I thought that we were finally going to get decorative arches, which I did use the arch inside, and then I found out it was a normal arch. I really crave a decorative arch so much, because I like to, for example, do bars with arches. I love putting, like, you know, arched walls and putting like shelving them in between them and stuff, but it's really hard when the arch acts as a door to do that. So you need to like draw a one tile room behind it to have the look that you're going for, but it's not really the look that you're going for. So I'm hoping that we are given an arch at some point, a decorative arch, because I am craving one so badly. And yeah, then I used those vines, or not vines, I think they're called wisteria, from Royalty and Legacy. I wanted the accent like color for the flowers to be this pink and purple. I just like how the pink and purple looks with all of the whites and the browns. So you'll see a lot of the flowers and stuff around is gonna be that pink and purple color scheme. And then I also used these ones by Enchanted by Nature to just have it be a bit different. It was irritating me a bit that, you know, the wisteria wasn't matching the greenery of those things that I put on the front. I don't know what the name is, but I got over it quickly. And then I also used these fairy lights from Businesses and Hobbies. I really like the look of them, and there was a photo that I was really inspired by for this section, which if I can find it I will put it on as well so that you can see. I don't think it looks a lot like that, but I did try and incorporate some of what I was looking at in this section, and I think it looks really nice, and I think it especially looks really nice at night, which is so important for me when it comes to building in the game. And then moving on, I'm now gonna do the landscaping, or like setting out the sections for the barn, and then also the greenhouse. So I gave a full greenhouse, and then also a section that you can plant outside, because I was thinking first I was gonna only include the section that you can plant outside, but I know some of the plants, when gardening works properly in this game, they actually work with the seasons, and so I wanted to give you an option to be able to plant in both, you know, winter and summer, autumn, whatever seasons, you know, it is in the game. And I also wanted this pathway to kind of lead out to the back, so that if, you know, you can't really do it, your Sims can't do it, but in my head, if this was real life, you would actually be able to maybe go and walk through the vineyards at the back. So that's why it's really open towards the back area over there. So I use these planter boxes. I love to use these ones. These are from City Living, and then I use the hedges that we got with Royalty and Legacy. I actually love the quality of the hedges from Royalty and Legacy more than the ones that we have, for example, in the base game. Something about Royalty and Legacy, I will say, that pack, the quality of the items is just so different, and whichever team worked on that pack should work on all the furniture. And also, I never say this, but even the Cass stuff was really nice from Royalty and Legacy, I will say. I don't know much about the gameplay. I actually haven't had the opportunity to play through that game or through that pack just yet, but yeah, I really like it, and the world is one of the most beautiful worlds I've ever seen. I think it does suffer from, you know, when there's a lot of beautiful things around, but none of it is, all of it is shells, none of it is anything that you can build on, and so sometimes it can feel a little bit quiet, lonely, a lot like what's the world that came with For Rent? It's just very quiet there, because there's nothing around that I feel like invites Sims to really come and, you know, be in certain areas. I know there's one area in Ondarion that I feel like is very lively, but other than that, I feel like it's so quiet for how beautiful that world is. And yeah, so I'm busy with the greenhouse now, and for a lot of greenhouses I've seen this, you know, first there's like a brick at the bottom, and then you'll have the glass. I have done a greenhouse before, and I remember I didn't do it on that one, even though a lot of my inspiration for the greenhouses were the same, and I was like, I really want to find a way to do it on this one. So I found a fence in Live Edit, luckily brick fence, and I just sized it down as you would have seen, and then I used the pillars as well to kind of just place it on the edges as well. And then I used the Greenhouse Haven kit in this lot, or in this greenhouse. And yeah, I also had to test these planter boxes. So for the planter boxes right now, they are functional. However, you will not be able to plant in the corners that where they meet in the middle. That's the only thing. I like the look of, I did separate them, right, so that you can plant in all four corners, but I didn't like that look as much as I like the ones where they are together. So I mean, you can decide if you want to have all four spots open or if three is enough. I promise you, I placed so many planter boxes here that I don't think you would really need the four, spots in that middle corners. So I didn't change it up or whatever when I was play testing this lot. I only really ran into that problem, and then there's a problem that I ran into on the inside. And then, oh yes, I did make the section for the cow, so you can include a cow if you want to make some cheese for them to test while they are tasting wine or whatever. And then the fencing around the cow area, and then the rest of the area, I think it's all from Horse Ranch Live Edit. And most of the time the Sims don't even treat it like it's there, so they'll actually kind of walk through it. So that's why I use that gate there. They'll actually just walk right through it. I've used the gate before, so I know that. And it won't conflict with anything or with him doing anything. And then in a lot of my inspiration photos for the garden area, because like honestly I don't really build a lot of farms and stuff, so I do have to use some, I have to rely on something. And also when it's these bigger lots, sometimes I feel like the layout can really intimidate you, because you're like, what you gonna fill all of this space with? And I did run into that problems, on the side where I did the little outside area, and then on the other side as well, there's an outside area there too. When I was like, I've already included everything that I possibly wanted to include here, what can I possibly include anymore? So I did not include me decorating those sides of the build, just because there's a lot, I promise you, there's a lot going on in this build already, and I like to keep my videos below an hour. I don't want to make it more than an hour. I feel like that's a bit long, so I didn't include decorating those. But I promise you, I just made some paths and put some tables and chairs and maybe like a chess table and a fountain down. It's really nothing that I feel like I had to show. And then I also will include a separate video of me doing the living area for whoever owns the business, because I kind of really wanted to focus on the commercial aspects of this build. I think, yeah, so I will make a separate video for that. I also was contemplating whether I wanted to redo that entire section, because I don't know if I like how it turned out. But then I went into the build last night and I actually don't mind how it turned out, so I will definitely make that video. That video will most likely just be with music, because I really think I'm gonna need to rest my voice after this. And yeah, I want to get that video out as quick as possible. I also have to address that I may need to take a little bit of a break from posting. I have a really important exam that I need to study for, and I've been putting off studying. I have like a month left now for studying, and I just don't even know if it's possible at this point with all of the work to get through everything. But I have to, and I will, and everything will be fine. But that does mean that I do need to kind of just take a little bit of a break. At first I was actually just gonna put this video off until the exam was done. The exam is on the 5th of August. However, I didn't want to put it off that long. I really wanted to get this out. I'm so happy with how it turned out. And oh yes, at the back here you'll see I created like a two-tiered situation. I don't know why I went with this. I just had the idea and I felt like I needed to do it. I did test it out, and those planter boxes up top, they work, as well as the ones at the bottom. So it only matters that it's raised up one on one platform, not double. That's why I made it kind of like a step situation. I hope that makes sense. Otherwise your Sims will not be able to get to it. But if it's on a platform that is one tick high, I guess you can say, they'll be able to get to it. Yeah, so these plant boxes as well, you will not be able to plant on those sections at the top that your Sim can't get to. But like I said, I feel like there's more than enough space to plant, and you can always just remove the middle box if you really want the space for your Sim to plant. And yeah, so I gave you a full space to plant all of the items that you're going to need for the winemaking. And then on the opposite side we will have the barn where there's a cellar as well in the basement and everything. As you can see, I did use a lot of the greenhouse haven kit in here. I love that kit for, you know, greenhouses. I don't really know if you'll get much use of it, or yeah, use with it, whatever. Outside of a greenhouse, really, I think you can, maybe, you know, but I do think it's a really nice kit if you are building anything farm related as well. It would come in handy for that. And so I did, like I mentioned before, I will put out the second video of the living area, but I'll upload this lot once this video is out, so you may even get a sneak peek of what I did in the living area before I put that video out, which is fine. Content is content, and so I'm gonna put out the content anyways, but I do want to get this build out. I want people to get their hands on it and be able to see it and let me know what they think, because I do love this build. I love it so much. And then I felt like it was a bit dark in here, so I did include these extra lights. I will say the tool mod really does come in handy when it comes to that duplication situation thing, because when you raise up things and you want to do everything at the exact same height, but you don't have the tool mod, you'll have to continue to raise it up and then put one out and another one and another one. But with the tool mod, you'll just click on it, and then, you know, shift alt and click on the ground, and you'll have, you know, another version of what you just did, which I love. And I will say, after building in Paralives and then coming back here, I did feel a little bit restricted, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, first thing that would have been solved is, you know, that color wheel situation. You know, that would have easily solved the whole paraslide thing for me, which is the roof decor. Yeah, I wouldn't have had to learn how to recolor, basically mod a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say mod. I feel like modding is like so far superior to, or not superior, but more difficult, I should say. Not superior, but more difficult than creating CC. And so I don't feel like it's that bad, but definitely would have been a little bit better if I had a color wheel to color that. You know, I wouldn't have had to spend an entire afternoon finding out or researching how to recolor CC or recolor objects, which I actually found it really difficult to find an informative video on that. One day when I know more about that situation, I will make a really comprehensive video on how to do it. I think more so I was struggling with finding an updated version of what to do now. A lot of them were, you know, maybe like 5 years ago that I could find. And so this is the barn area. I love how this barn turned out. It just looks exactly like something you would see in our or along our wine route, which in the Western Cape, actually our wine route is very acclaimed, I think the word is, and it gets a lot of, what can I say, awards and so on for being really good. So I think it makes sense then that I've built this winery. And so yeah, I did really take a lot of inspiration from this, or not from this, but like based on what I've seen. So I went to Stellenbosch University, that's where I studied, and Stellenbosch University has a lot of these buildings. Yeah, you'll see this, and Stellenbosch is along the wine route in Cape Town, along with Franschhoek, and there's a few other places as well where you'll see a lot of this architecture style. So I was inspired by what I would see along my route when I was, you know, driving to varsity in the morning. I even think Stellenbosch train station is the style of building as well, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. I mean, I did take the train for 3 years or 2 years to varsity, so I should remember, but it has been a while. I can't believe it's been like 5 years since, well, I graduated. I was a 2020 graduate, which so sad, so sad. I can't believe, you know, the only thing that kept me together was the fact that I was going to graduate and I was going to have my graduation, and then it was ripped away from me. I still remember I was in the in a line at the traffic department making a license appointment, which I failed, by the way, which I failed. And I was watching my graduation as a YouTube video, and my name rolled down the screen. So it was so heartbreaking. It was really, really so heartbreaking. And it even makes me want to go back to varsity and just study something just for the sake of getting a graduation, you know? Because that was the only thing that I was looking forward to by the end of that whole saga. I didn't even like the degree that I had, which I studied law. So yeah, I don't even like the degree anymore, you know? So I was really, really hoping for the graduation, and it never happened, but it's okay. And then what I'm doing at the moment, otherwise I can rant the whole day about how I missed this graduation, but I wanted to include some vineyards. I think that is what you call them, right? I wanted to include them on the lot because I was thinking, okay, you know, not everybody's going to want to maybe place this on this lot in Ondarion, and then you don't have the vineyards. And I feel like that's such a key feature of a winery, you know, or a wine farm, which is essentially what this is now. And so I was like, I need to include it somewhere on the lot, but I also didn't want to take up too much space with it because it's not functional. It's just decoration. There was other things that I may have wanted to include. At this point, I wasn't sure maybe if there was other things that I still wanted to include on the lot. I think I was going to try and include, you know, like chicken coops and stuff. I didn't, but there is more than enough space that you can possibly include that if you want to include it yourself. But yeah, I did want to have this somewhere, so I did come up with this little situation here. And you would have seen that I used the graveyards from vampires at the bottom of the vines, and the reason why is because usually they will sit on a hound of like dirt, like the ground is not flat under them like it would have been if I didn't include those things. Or that's just like what I've noticed. I think my wedding photos was in between vines, so from what I remember, they sit on a mound of dirt. So I had to include those. But I was thinking maybe I was going to raise the ground with the terrain first, and that would have been a nightmare because there's so much cleaning up really that you have to do with terrain sometimes because the tool isn't that precise. So I was looking through the live edit objects, and then I was like, oh, a grave, let me use that. And so I did use that. And then I did correct whatever is going on with this spandrel over here. So this happens when you use freezers on the outside of the building, which is that trim that you saw me place down in between the roof. One way you can correct that is there's like this debug object, which I don't think I actually included that correction, so maybe I should just make a separate video on it because it's so irritating when it happens. You can't then use freezers. You either have to draw a wall so that the spandrels aren't touching, you know, the edges of the building, so that it doesn't do that, or you can kind of like include a second floor under the roof and use there's like the second floor trim that you can use as well instead of a freeze then, and yeah, then it won't do that. So maybe I should have included it because that would have made, you know, been better. But if you ever want me to explain that in another video, I will try my best to do so, or show you in another video, I will do that. But it's super irritating. The freezers are a little bit annoying in this game because they work with rooms as well. So as soon as you like draw a new room or you delete a wall, they will come off the spaces that you wanted them to be on, basically. Just the easy way of saying it. And so when you have these really, really big builds, sometimes you won't even notice that while you are drawing rooms, your freezers on the outside are disappearing and going on to other places. It's really annoying. But yeah, that was the only place that I was really doing that here. I didn't really do that on the main building either because there I already used the second floor trim instead of using a freeze. But the second floor trims are not as thick as the freezes usually, and so it doesn't always give the look that you want it to give. So then the other way to correct that would be to draw a wall or like a one tile room so that none of the spandrels are touching the edges of the building, if that makes sense, or the walls that are the exterior of the building. Yeah, such a long explanation, but hopefully you got what I was putting out. And then this section back here is usually, you know, in wine farms, in the barns, they will usually have this section where there's like all of these barrels and stuff, and then they may have like a table or two where you can do wine testing in them and so on. So this is what that section is. And then you would have seen that I already did the part with the wine pressing or the grape pressing sections, the nectar making stations or whatever. I also included like towels and a hose pipe and everything, because I'm thinking like, if you're going in there with bare feet, once you come out, you should be able to rinse your feet right there, right? So that's why I included the stool, the towel, a sink area, a hose pipe, and a drain, so that you can like rinse off your feet when you get out of there. And then this downstairs here is the cellar. Now I did include bathrooms here as well, because I was thinking, if Sims are in here, or if they are anywhere in the back, the bathrooms would be really far from where they are. And like I said, I did underestimate how much space there was on the slot, so I did feel the need to include bathrooms, but I only did that after I was filming. I was like, I need to include a bathroom, so I didn't include that. And it was just cubicles and sinks that I included, nothing fancy, you know. And then I was looking at, you know, Pinterest and whatever for inspo, and then I came up with this whole thing that you see over here. I did end up deleting this section, but I'm gonna copy and paste this entire, I'm gonna make it like a room, and I'm gonna copy and paste it somewhere else. So I did want to show you exactly how I set up the section. I just felt like there was so much objects on this lot. I will say there is so much objects on this lot. Usually when I build something, right, I'm thinking about the vision more so than functionality, and it does function on my laptop. Like, I did not have issues with it. So I think maybe for someone else whose laptop is maybe not as advanced as mine, this build may be a bit too much to handle. Hopefully not, I really hope not, but there is a lot of objects on the slot. So I was kind of trying to get down the object count, so I felt like I've already done this. So there you can see I'm repeating it on the side of the wall. I already did it here, so there's no need for that room there. Let me just delete it, and so that's why I deleted it. But you would have seen I took the barrel from Horse Ranch, and then I used the tool mod to rotated it by 90 degrees so that it would lay flat like this, so that I can make this look. And then I used this fireplace from, I think it's Giardino table. That is also one of my favorite kits. I really want to make a favorite kits video, because I do think that for anyone who cannot afford, you know, the bigger expansion packs, there are definitely a few kits that I think are just so nice and somewhat versatile, actually. The Giardino table kit, that was a newer one, I think, and that one is, I love that one. It comes with so much like clutter that I like, and I did use a lot of them in here as well. And yeah, so I just put these shelves. The shelf is from Home Chef Hustle, and it has like lights at the bottom of them, so I love using them. However, they do run into that situation with shelves in this game where the slots are weird. So they're either not gonna take certain objects because they're too big, or sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for why a certain object will not go on there, because I tried so many on that middle shelf and nothing would take there. So I did take a few minutes to think about it. You see me do this situation while I was watching this video. I was like, I actually don't like that, and I went and I changed it back to all of the shelves. So just ignore whatever I'm really doing at the moment, because I felt like what I did before was better. And sometimes that does happen with these videos. I will change something in real time, and I will go back and be like, why did I do that? You know, why did I change that? And I'll go back and change it again because I feel like it looks better. And also what I did down here is, right now I have this really light brick on the wall. I think this one is from Life and Death, but I wanted it to be a bit darker down here. So I did, while I was taking photos and so on, change it to be a darker brick, and I can't remember which brick. It may also be from Life and Death, but yeah, that one was a lot darker and just more moodier, and I think even for the wine it's better. Shouldn't it like age in a dark area or whatever? So yeah, I felt like that looked better, but for the most part everything else stayed the same. And the way that I build, I will say, is I will see an object or I'll think about something and I'll immediately switch to whatever I just thought about or what I saw. And so it can be a little confusing, and I do apologize, but it's just how my brain works. And I have tried to tell myself, like, please focus on one thing at a time. It just doesn't help. It doesn't work. Like, I need to execute whatever the idea is that just popped into my head at that moment, and I will not give myself a second chance to think, because I'm so afraid of maybe the idea escaping me or whatever. But yes, so that will be the section where you like store the wine and stuff. It may be a bit bigger. I have never used the winemaking skill. Like I said, I think previously in the video, I don't really do farms and stuff. Maybe I should. I'm really looking for a legacy challenge that maybe if when I come back from my break, that I can play, that like forces me to go through each and every pack, you know, so that I have to play through all of them. I'm really looking for one like that, but it needs to be fun. There needs to be drama. It needs to keep me intrigued. Even though I'm like really a list kind of person and a goal person, like if there's a list and goals and stuff that I need to complete, like I will commit. But I need something fun. So if you know of any challenges that are like that, then please let me know down below, and then I will start working on, when I come back, maybe getting ready for that challenge or whatever, so that I can, you know, play through the packs and know a little bit more about these skills that I rarely ever use and so on. You would have seen I removed that entire circle situation that I did show you in the beginning, but it's because I actually didn't know what to do out here. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I didn't know what to do out here. I took maybe 3 hours to figure out, okay, I'm just gonna make it a parking lot, because you would have a parking lot in the front of these places, you know. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it a parking lot, but I didn't really like how the parking lot was looking with the circle area, that, you know, the path leading up to the door. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna change that to just be what it is now. However, I did like what I had there previously. It's just maybe I'll use it in a different bowl, you know. So I went with this, and yeah, the curb or the little brick thing in the front, that's from high school years, live edit. And then I just used I think the fencing is from Strangerville, and then I also got these cars from live edit objects, and I included a truck over there because, you know, like if they're delivering stuff or whatever, it made sense to me to have that there. And then these bushes as well to go along with the manicured look. And then I was like, what am I gonna put in these, you know, what am I gonna put in these big sections on the side? And so I went with this fountain, and then I put the balls in it from, I think, Spa Day, if I'm not mistaken. That's where the balls are from, so I put those in them as well. And yeah, I really love how this looks from the front. I think it turned out so nice. I will say I do think that this lot would fit nicely into Orange, the world. What's that world called now again? I actually do not remember what the world is called. I've never built in that world, which is so funny, because, well, not funny, but like, I'm surprised by that, you know, that I've never built there before. But you can put this on there if that has a 64 by 64, which I think it does. However, I think I would rather use that 64 by 64 lot for like a nice place where you come and there's horses and you come to visit, to ride the horses and whatever. That's what I would put there. A horse ranch, I guess I would put there. And then you could also place it in cottage living if there is a 64 by 64 lot. And if you heard that in the background, there was just like a huge truck that came past my window. But yeah, and then we are now in the inside. So this is like the store section, right? So we'll buy or we'll sell the wines that you have made, you've brewed, or whatever you want to call it, you've aged. And I really wanted it to have the same look and feel, that maybe just a bit more less, or I should say a little bit less rustic than my market build. So if you haven't seen it already, I built a functional farmers market, and I used this kind of method to store the fruits and veg that I was selling on it. I did get this idea from someone on a Reddit, which I did include the original credits in that functional farmers market video. But yes, I just did this here again because I saw it a lot in like wine stores and winery stores, or whatever you want to call them, and I wanted somewhere to put the wine, so that's what I did here. All of the stuff at the bottom, so this big crates are from cats and dogs. Then I think the boards that I use on the side and then in the middle is from Seasons, or it may also be cats and dogs. I think they have the same kind of board. And then I included the wine bottles that I found in Debug. This is from Horse Ranch as well. I then used the tool mod to rotate them a little bit. I think I did by 80 degrees because they shouldn't lay completely flat, so it wasn't 90 degrees. And then yeah, I just placed them in the boxes, which I wasn't going to show you doing that, every single box, because that would have been really long, and my whole intention was to do it on this other side as well. However, I felt like that was just going to be too much bottles. There wasn't even that many flavors for me to really justify another side of, whatever that stand or whatever you want to call it. So I just went with this, what I'm doing at the moment. Flip the barrels again, and then, oh yes, I'm using these signs from get to work, that's what it is. And then I'm just sizing them down to kind of, give you an idea of what the prices are. Then those shelves that are next to the 3-tiered shelf, that is a get to work sale shelf, which also works with businesses and hobbies, if I'm not mistaken. It does, because I've tested it before with the functional functional farmers market. It worked. And so here is where we are using the arches that I was speaking about in the beginning. These are not decorative arches though, they are doors. And I didn't want to have to draw a one tile room at the back, which really would have made more sense than whatever I am doing at the moment, So my whole idea was to cover it up, because I wasn't going to use the one tile room, and then the other side is the living area for whoever owns the lot. But I didn't want to draw the one tile room, so I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to cover it up in a different way. So I used this wood slats from Get Famous, and I just wanted it to be deep enough for there to be shelves, or for this like arched look, not for it to be one tile deep, because it's also somewhat complicated when you are having it one tile deep and then you place shelves in there and you're trying to get everything on the shelf, but it's so difficult because you can't see in the one tile room. It's just like, I didn't want to have to do that, right? So I came up with this idea. All that to say that I eventually did draw like a one tile room at the back, because in the living area it didn't look right. You could kind of see through to the shop area. I didn't really like it, so I did draw a one tile room. I didn't use the one tile room in this shop, so it's just a one tile room. There's nothing in it or anything like that. So yeah, but it looks fine to me. It's just that I didn't want that to be the way that it looked. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And eventually you can see here I placed like shelves that covered up half of what I did anyways. I do like how it looks. I really love how it looks, so I did leave it the way that it was. And those shelves on the side are from the Cozy Bistro kit, and then also the one in the middle is a businesses and hobby shelves, so you will sell from that shelf as well, or people will be able to buy from that shelf as well. And then I also, on the shelves that are in the back, I put all of the bottles that like relate to occults. So the one side was for occult drinks. There was like the blood plasma one, or the plasma one, and then also the wolves one, and then the ones for, it's the people from the magic realm, sorcerers. They're not called sorcerers, but whatever. And then the other side there was like love ones, and then energy wine, so that's for that section. And then all of the ones that were made like with plants, and then trash is in the stand that you saw me make. And then a lot of these wine shops also will have like these things in front of the counters with more wine. So this is what I'm doing here. I just did it again with plant boxes, and then I used the tool mod to rotate it. You can kind of put the wine on the shelf. I don't know, I didn't try it, but I don't know if it would maybe cut into the plant boxes or whatever. But that shelf is also a sale shelf that you see me place the plant boxes on. There just isn't anything currently on it, so you wouldn't actually be able to sell what is on or in these plant boxes right now. These are just like a lot of what is in the shop is like set dressing, I would say. But with businesses and hobbies, I found that you shouldn't really have that much sale shelves. Well, say that like several times, but you shouldn't have that many, because, or actually you shouldn't have that many activities, which I hate, because I love the idea of the business and hobbies pack. Like it gives us the closest thing to multifunctional lots, right? But I have found in testing other builds, such as my farmers market, right, there was buying stuff, there was having coffee, because there was a cross stitch cafe as well. I will link that video somewhere, either at the end or in the cards. And I found that when you have that many activities, they don't then tend to buy things. You know, you can make money, obviously. I did put an entrance kiosk outside, so when they come in, they'll have to pay to make use of the facilities or whatever. But as for buying things, I did find it to be quite rare in that grocery store. However, it may just be because I did place a lot of objects in them, and so they have too much choice almost. But yeah, I did put less sale shelves in, so that, you know, maybe they didn't have that much choice, and so they would be more encouraged to buy the wine or whatever. But I would say if you can maybe reduce on the amount of activities that they should do, but it's already a lot. So they'll make nectar, they'll buy things, they'll drink bar drinks. I think that's it. That's all. Oh yes, and then I just remembered I should probably place a radio in the bar, which I just forgot, but I will definitely make sure that I do that before I upload the build, so that there's some nice ambient music, you know, in the bar. So yeah, I will make sure that I do that. And yeah, so this is mainly it for this section. I did place this round shelf in here as well, because I saw that a lot in my inspiration. So the top two tables are just from high school years, and then the bottom shelf is from businesses and hobbies, and then I just placed the wine on there. And then I also wanted some greenery in here, so I used this green thing from Love Struck, which you can actually find in the fans area, which is wild. I don't know why it's in there, but a lot of the hanging plants and stuff is in the fans area. And I wanted the light to kind of sit at the bottom of it, so I kind of, you know, drop the light down a bit, if that makes sense. Well, you would have seen me do it. And then you would have seen that I placed those wine coolers situations, like fridges there. I did end up just switching that out with vending machines, because they are not functional, and I don't really love things that are not functional. I wish that everything that I did was not set dressing and functional, but unfortunately we just do not have actual. I think this would be really close to a grocery store. We just do not have that. Get to Work is not even remotely anything like a grocery store would be, with those crappy shelves, and the shelves from businesses and hobbies are not any better. That is one thing that I wish that we would have gotten before they decided, okay, no more packs for the Sims, which I actually think is true. I do feel like that's where we're at the moment. I wish we would have gotten a functional grocery store, or at least functional malls, but then again, you can't even get a pack that's supposed to have multiple activities functioning properly to where Sims will do everything. so I don't know how you would get the mall to function anyways. However, malls function in The Sims 4 free play quite fine, even if it was something like that. You know, it's like just a storefront and then they kind of disappear into a rabbit hole. I will say it will make me a little bit upset if anything was a rabbit hole in the mall, but it's a little bit better than having nothing at all, you know? So anyways, now I'm in the bar and I love a bar with an arch. I love a bar with an arch. However, in the game, it can be quite finicky to make these. The first time that I ever made it was when I built Ravenwood Occult Academy. I used a different method in that one. And then I use it also in my Eternal Bite Vampire restaurant. However, I used that same method from Ravenwood Occult Academy, so I wanted to try this method. I think I have tried this method before and it didn't work. I'm so sure that I did. However, surprisingly, everything is functional in this bar, which I was really thinking, okay, wait, there's one thing that did not work. There was one thing that I had to change, but it was the one thing that I just didn't expect at all. And so yeah, I didn't have to change anything about the bar. The tables over the whole hall works. They actually go and they sit down at this high top table, which the high top table is from Businesses and Hobbies. And then the chairs will change. I liked none of the chairs that I placed in here when I was taking the photos, so I did change that to one from Royalties and Legacy. And yeah, I think it looks much better, which I think you'll see in the photos and agree that it looks much better. And then for the back of the bar, I really wanted to incorporate this thing that I did with the drums, with the barrels again. And I did like the shape of the bar that was at the top of it with, I think that one is from Life and Death, but I wanted to keep the sign, right? But I didn't like how the sign and the bar thing was not meeting nicely. So I came up with this idea to then turn around one of the signs so that there would be this straight line that I can then place the bar, I guess, sign or name on top of it, and it would not look like there was cutouts or whatever, you know, like it looks like everything is built in, is what I'm trying to say. And then this is the one issue that I ran into, which is just so weird to me that I did run into this, because you'll see later that I include these barrels under this high top table that we have from, I think it's Tiny Living, and Sims could sit down there perfectly fine. There was actually no problem. I was really expecting that I was gonna have to move the barrel, but when I was playtesting, my Sim could sit down at the table, no problem. It was like nothing was in the way. So I was surprised to find out that these barrels actually did conflict with the cake stand that I put on top, so the Sims could not grab anything from this cake stand because the barrels were in the way. So I created a separate table in the corner where you see that big plant with the cake stand, because I wanted my barrels, I wanted to keep them, you know, I like this idea. So I created a separate table on that side where that big tree plant is for the cake stand, and I made it a banquet table so that you can, you know, if you want to have like a banquet kind of situation. I saw this in like my inspo photos. I'll see if I can include the photo that I was kind of referencing for this table situation in here. And yeah, and then I just used like a lot of foods from the kitchen clutter kit, from the Home Chef Hustle kit, and then I used some things from that garden to table kit as well. Yeah, and then that's the table thing that I'm speaking about, so they can actually sit at the table where I put the glass table on the top and then the barrel at the bottom. They can actually sit there, which is really surprising. So you saw I already changed out the chairs for the bar or for the high top tables, and then I chose this really ugly base game chair. Not it's not ugly, it's just not for this build, but also it is a little ugly. I don't like them. I don't even think I would use them, not in that swatch at least. Okay, so we are outside now, and I just have to say, these booths, do not use them. They will corrupt your builds and they will crash your game. So I was playtesting. This has happened to me on more than one occasion. The first time it happened to me was, I think, like 2 years ago already, and I built a arcade, which was such a nice arcade, by the way. I grieve it all the time, but it corrupted because of the cubicles or the booths that I used in it. I know it's because of that, because every single time I would try to move it after I had placed it, it would crash my game, and the same thing happened with these ones. So I did end up removing it, just so that, you know, if you download this, you're not going to have a problem yourself. And then yeah, if you wanna download this build, remember, for the white version you will need the paraslide or the roof decor, so I'll upload that to my Patreon along with the tray files. And if you want just like a normal version, no custom content, that will be on the gallery under SimWithMishka or hashtag SimWithMishka, and I'll also upload the custom content version on the gallery as well. Let me know what you think. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please do give me a like and subscribe, and I will upload the video of the living space soon. And yes, thank you so much for being here, and I will chat to you in the next one. Bye bye.